next work session at 4 p.m. on the 15th, so we can give you a breakdown of all what the plans are. So you said just give you an idea.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd rather have that breakdown before we vote on it, but that's okay.
Yes, sir.
And also too, we had a presentation on Latham Companies last fall. TJ talked to Jason, I talked to him last week. Still like trying to find a way where they can be involved in this as well, so we can advantage the historic tax credits and the opportunities of the tax credit. And I think there's a way that can be done. They actually sent.
This will be my third redistricting cycle. So I've been there a long time. In the past 2 times, I've been more behind the scenes technical, management support, and this time they kind of got me out in front a little bit more. Of course, I still have some planners back at the office that will help me from time to time. My first introduction to, the first introduction to redistricting and this type of thing was with City of Anniston back in 2002. I had all the council people there in my office, sitting behind me. There we're going, that was the issue group back then. But they've been there as we're going and changing the boundaries, and of course they, a lot of back and forth, bickering, a little bit bickering, but okay, I want this person in my district, I want this, okay, I want this road. And so forth. Sometimes there was okay, y'all can have him. There was a little bit trouble, right? But one thing I drew from that is they knew their voters, their constituencies, and the communities. They knew their communities. And I want to bring that up because this type of project, this process is for you guys. I'm here to help you guys out. But with the redistricting process, you all know your communities and your voters, and so that's, you all take the lead. I'm just here to assist. Now this, for those of you that don't know a whole lot about redistricting, this takes place every 10 years after each U.S. Census count. Now this time the COVID kind of delayed that process a little bit, but redistricting data sets have been released. The other stuff is not, but we can go ahead and get started on redistricting. Now the goal of this is to make sure that one person's vote in a ward is has the same weight or ranking or influence as a vote in another person. It's kind of that principle, the one person, one vote principle. So that's very important. A big thing of this is minority representation. Packing or diluting minorities, that needs to be avoided. I'll go into more detail on that in a second. Preserving, and for you guys, you know your communities, preserving the sense of community, those community of interest is very important. Anniston is a community, but inside of Anniston we have smaller communities. And it's a good idea to not break those up along ward boundaries. So that's something to consider. Of course, we don't want you guys to have to run against each other next time. So we need to keep you guys in your own wards, so that's another consideration. Now the process of all this. I've done a preliminary analysis of the city with, and I know it's a little tough to see on this sheet right here. That's a preliminary analysis of your current ward lines with today's, the 2020 census. Now I know it's very, very tough to see. I apologize for that. But the third column there is your target. Third column is target. And that is simply just your total population divided by the number of the wards. You have 4 wards. So every ward is trying to get to that target. Now as you can see, that fourth column there where it says deviation, we've got some 8.5%, -10%, -4, 5.97%. There's a good bit of deviation there. So you guys, yeah, you'll definitely have to move your boundaries. And of course, 1 in 4 population is over the target, and wards 2 and 3 will have to gain population. They're below the target. Now, yeah, if you look at this other sheet where the table that only has just a single table, this is what we did. We came up with the last time with the current wards. This is the 2010 U.S. Census numbers. And of course, if you look there with the deviation, that fourth column, -1, 0, 3.7, -3, that's very good numbers. That's what you guys, or the CD came up with last time. as far as deviation. That's about a difference of 7 from the top to the bottom. So that's about what we want to do. The Department of Justice for cities likes about 10 and below. 10 and below for cities. So 7 is good, and that's what we're going to try to strive for with the redistricting process, is try to get that deviation down. Now, the process of moving the wards, I mean, it's just kind of a simple process. I bring a laptop in, have a big screen like this, then we just sit down together, and with our mapping software, we have information on the screen. We're just simply moving our boundaries, our census blocks, like city blocks, and we're just moving the boundaries, and the demographics will update in real time. We can preview if we move the boundary here.
Something totally different with it, there's a mechanism to do that as well, as long as it qualifies for tax exemption, which is going to be what you typically think capital improvements
That's what
cities
you
have
think.
been on, right? So there's a way to do that. We want to make sure we're within the, four corners of the tax law on this and, the ordinance, but there's ways to do that.
Yes.
Well, that really answers my question. That and your earlier statement that we're really pulling from more ponds. So if we get into a discussion 2 weeks from now where we look at that and Dee Dee says, well, where's this project I was talking about? We've got some opportunities with these other pots that are not bound by this, but also with the language that's in this to shuffle and adjust, to make sure that we're hitting on all the pieces and parts that we as a group feel like is important. That was my concern, was doing that. The second question I've got is, where does this put us from a standpoint of bonding capacity?
So obviously, your constitutional debt limit under Section 225 is based off the assessed values of the city at the end of last fiscal year. So we pull those numbers from September 30 to 2021. I can tell you what they were. The net assessed values of all taxable property, including motor vehicles, for the city of Anniston was $331,966,250. The city's debt limit, constitutional debt limit of 225, is 20% of that. So it's roughly